Perfect. There we go. And obviously gotta put it out on the socials here to get all the people in. We got thousands of people flocking in. Hugest event Ottawa's ever seen.
There
But
you
yeah, so um, Alex, thank you for joining the show. For everyone who is tuning in, Alex is an Ottawa Senators writer for Sportsnet. We're very thrilled to have him on to join us for this special edition live stream. We were like, yeah, we can do a video, and I was like, I don't got time to wait for editing. You got to get this to the people today.
Hot off the press.
Hot
There
off
you
the
go.
press. Yeah, put a Sens jersey on. I was like, I'm just feeling it. I'm in the mood to watch some Sens hockey. So, very excited. And the topic of the day is Linus Ullmark signing his 4-year extension with the Ottawa Senators. So that means he's with the club for hopefully and ideally the next 5 seasons at 8.25 mil is the extension and a full no move clause. No signing bonus, just straight cash, straight dollar bills, and Linus Ullmark, Ottawa Senator for hopefully 5 seasons, maybe more. We shall see. But Alex, yeah, first of all, off the top, want to get your thoughts on Linus Ullmark. First of all, coming into town and the vibe you got from him when you were first doing media scrums, and then more recently how you have seen him kind of, I don't know, get maybe close with the press, maybe fire back at Bruce a couple times. And
Uh, Yeah, no,
it's
I
been
mean, on that note, I think the first game he played after the game, we did media with him, and he said, "You guys are too nice." So, I think, and I think that encapsulates Allmark. He's just a world of energy, one of the smartest guys you'll ever see, kind of in the NHL. I just think like super well spoken in his second language, brings a bunch of energy, a lot of wisdom. He kind of he always has like a smart intellectual quote, quasi philosophical. But I think for the Sens, just on the ice, there is a bit of a risk with this deal. He'll be 36 at the end of it, with the extension, and it's a high number. It's 8.25. The cap is supposedly rising, which obviously makes that a bit more manageable to eat if you're the Senators. But at the end of the day, it seems like a match made in heaven. Both these, the two sides, came together. If Allmark is that starting goalie that he was in Boston, this Senators team will be really good and probably close to the playoffs, if not a playoff team. And for Steve Staios, this team, as you guys very well know, has not had a very good goaltender since Craig Anderson, really, in 2017. So I think it makes a lot of sense. There will be risk at the end of the contract, but for the present moment, I think it's what the team needed for right now. Both of them talked about wanting to have it done before the season, so they kind of get any sort of media cloudy skies throughout the season out of the way. And I think it makes a lot of sense, and it should make for a pretty exciting season. And it looks like Allmark will be the goalie of the future for a very long time in Ottawa.
And I think it's one of those things about Ullmark is that you're right. We haven't had a good goalie since Craig Anderson. And, it feels like we found the next Craig Anderson. And, I saw somebody today say this is the best goalie since Hasek for the Sens. And I'm like, listen, if we get prime Craig Anderson and then prime playoff Craig Anderson, it's over. Like, just give the cup to us. It doesn't matter. It's done. And I mean, I appreciate the point of view of there's a bit of risk. I don't feel it. I don't feel that there's a risk. It feels like he's going to be just as good now as he is at 36. He plays a style that isn't super hard on his body, which I think that's really important. Whereas Korpisalo, I don't know if you guys happened to be on Twitter last night, but he started the season as 6 Pasalo. And we know that all too well. But one of the takeaways is he's just he swims. He can't find his crease. And that's hard on the body. Whereas Ullmark, very consistent, solid movement, technique, whole 9 yards. And Craig Anderson was just like that. So I absolutely get the point of view of, it's a risk, but not to me. He is like to send for 5 more years, and then if he's still good after year 5, they're going to sign him longer, because why not? We've had these situations where we have not had good goaltending for so long that why would you put the baby out with the bathwater type deal? So it's nice to hear that he's good vibes, because quite honestly, he is good vibes. I love that guy.
And one of the things that Steo said was that he's also just a really good, and I think Travis Green might have mentioned as well, but he's a really good locker room presence. So not only is he a good goaltender, but he's not, a quiet kind of bystander in the dressing room. It seems like he's actually quite active and a key member of their leadership group, which is quite interesting because I feel like in my mind, there are very few goalies that are both really good at the position and also really outspoken leaders that guys look up to. So, I mean, I'm not sure if you have any insight into that, Alex,
Yeah.
but from what you've seen and talked to with some of the guys in the dressing room, what is your
Yeah.
vibe on that?
I think he kind of hit it on the nail. He's really calm. Speaking to him I think it was at the Sens event for fans at the Sens Fest. He talked about how, he's just a hockey player and like this isn't this isn't the be all end all, and he gets to go home and see his family. And his family was there today at the presser, but in general, he's super even keel, doesn't take it too seriously. Like he does, like he's like it's a job, but at the same time, he knows you talked about his mentality is like, okay, it goes in, that's fine. And I think for the Sens team, they've really, rode the wave, with their emotions over the past couple of years. And I think having a steady goaltender that doesn't kind of ride the highs and lows, like Korpisalo, like Matt Murray, like it never felt kind of calm in the net. I think now the Senators will have that. It will be interesting to see how many games he plays. He did get injured in 2023 during the playoffs when Boston was the historic team, and I think that's something to watch for as well. But otherwise, he hasn't really had too many injury woes. But overall, I think he brings a really good presence. He's talked about being a leader on this team, even as a goalie, and I think he's kind of taking guys under his wing. Apparently, he's going to take them out for a nice meal somewhere.
Yeah, I saw that.
So, but overall, I think he's a really good fit on this team. And I think if he plays anywhere close to how he's looked in preseason, and why wouldn't he, it will really put the Senators into I think, in my opinion, they're on the cusp of the playoffs. And, this team hasn't had a goalie with a .915 save percentage, except for one year with
Forsberg. Yeah.
That 1 year since 2017. And in my story today, I wrote about how Ullmark has 5 consecutive seasons above .915, right? So I think if that translates to this year, which why wouldn't it, the Senators are in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, and I was about to comment on that actually. I think it's really interesting, and only comparing to Korpisalo because that's who Ottawa had as their starter last season. But Korpisalo, it was one of those judgment calls that Pierre Dorion had made after one stellar season for Korpisalo. And you look at Ullmark, and even when he played with the Sabres over 6 years, his save percentage was still a .912 on average. And the Sabres were not very good during those years. They never made the playoffs, and he still put up a .912. So I think that that's something to really take into account. And then with the with the Bruins, it went up to an average of a .918 save percentage. Of course, he won a Vezina in there as well in 2023. So it's completely different in my mind. Of course, with any goaltender, whether it's injuries or what have you, there's going to be risks. But what's really nice is that Ullmark has a track record of good results. And like we've all talked about, that it's not something we've seen since like the Craig Anderson days. Maybe when they had Dominic Hasek for that one half season. It's definitely something new that Senators fans, I think, are gonna obviously be excited about. We've seen how Twitter has like absolutely blown up with people who are excited about the signing, and he hasn't even played a regular season game for us yet. And I did not get those kind of reactions on social media when Korpisalo signed for 5 years. So it's definitely something to keep an eye out for. We got a message in here from Devin, and he says, Alex, what has practice been like this year, and are there any noticeable differences?
I mean, other than the bag skates, which is an obvious difference from DJ Smith, I would say that there seems to be more of a focus. And I've been talking to some of the players, and they say, we worked on details before, but it wasn't like we'd kind of go over it. And a lot of times, and you see Travis Green at practice, like, for example, Tim Stützle a couple times earlier in training camp would screw up a drill, and he'd stop the drill, yell or just even politely talk to Timmy, redo the drill, and just redo it until they get it right. And I think with DJ, at least from what I watched, I wasn't at training camp last year, there wasn't much of that, right? Again, I don't profess to have been in this business for 20 years and know what every single training camp looks like, but there does seem to be much more of a focus, a clarity. And, I talked to Tkachuk a little bit, which is the first story that drops tomorrow, but he's talked about how there's some like a clarity with Travis Green that might not have been there before with DJ Smith. He doesn't go out to say it that way, but he says there's a clarity that we kind of have as a team. And I think they kind of needed a kick in the butt, and I think Travis Green has done that. We'll see how it plays out this season, but I do think overall, just the attention to detail seems to be at a much higher level than it was in previous years.
And I'm sure you caught it in the press conference when Ullmark made a comment about talking to one of his teammates about how, he came here and Buffalo and Ottawa were compared, but he said they're not the same at all. And I just wanted to get your point of view on that. And did it feel like Ullmark's essentially saying this team's ready to take that next step?
Yeah, I mean, he said that, this team's ready for the playoffs, and I do think they're in that kind of mode and mentality. I think it's interesting that, this year with Steos, with Green, with Tkachuk, like all the leaders, they talk about like winning the day, right?
Yeah.
Or they'd kind of get ahead of themselves and, have these big proclamations and the summer of Pierre and everything like that. Right? and I think they got ahead of themselves, right? And now it's really about day by day grind, win the day. And, that's also something just for showmanship and saying the right things. But I do think if they implement the mentality that they seem to be trying to do, I think that's the way you win. You don't win in the NHL by riding the waves. It's by, winning each battle, and it kind of that collection of winning individual battles, being smarter, which they've also talked about. Brady, Shabbat have talked about just being smarter, playing the right way, not just, you can work hard, but if you're playing dumb, then you're going to get exposed, right? And so I think that's the key differences is just maybe playing smarter and being a bit more meticulous in their attention to detail.
And one thing that was talked about last season that I think is really important that people take into account this year is that when you have an elite goalie behind you, your confidence level is much better.
Yeah.
And I think it works both ways, right? I feel like if your goalie's really good, the players feel like they can play at a higher level, and maybe let's say they do allow the hopefully very few odd man chances, but if they allow one of those, you have confidence that your goalie will bail you out versus being like, oh God, this is 50-50. I do not know what to expect. So I think when you have the confidence in your goalie to not go down a goal within potentially the first few minutes of a game, it also really helps. And I'm sure Ullmark is quickly going to earn the trust of the team, and I think vice versa. And that should ideally really help out.
No, it's interesting you talk about just that. I was speaking to one of the players, and they just felt like last year everything went in, right? And it just like and I think now it's a bit different. I'm probably made that a bit stronger than they did, but they did talk about how it felt like every puck kind of bad bounce, everything would kind of find its way in the net. And
yeah,
I kind of asked, what's it like when the goalie is playing well? How much confidence? They say, a little bit, but not a huge difference. But I think just at the very least, not being down, what was the stat? Like 21 games that the first or second shot went in. Like, you just can't win in the NHL if that's the case.
Yeah.
And they had the worst save percentage in the league, right? If you, I wrote a story about Ullmark and a couple of weeks ago, and Korpisalo's expected goals was like -16. I don't have it off the top of my head, and I think
It's something around there.
And Ullmark's was expected goals was like +14. That's 30 goals. That takes something like 27th in the league in goals allowed or some. I don't have it perfect, to about 15th, right? And there were about 20 goals for.
Yeah, and those teams become playoff teams.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's the stats back it up. You're absolutely correct, and I think that's the challenge. Last year's roster, probably, we had rose-colored glasses a little bit. Obviously, we were ready for them to take that next step, but it felt like there were so many times that they tripped and they took a step back. Injuries, defensive deficiencies with a crappy coach, and then the ownership deal. And then finally, your goaltending just couldn't stop anything. So there was always a hiccup. Now it feels as though they're ready. The roster is much better than it was last year. I mean, this forward group is something special, but to have a goalie who has a Vezina under his belt and consistently puts up way above league average goaltending, that gets you somewhere. And I think having that for Forsberg will be a total boon, because he won't have to know that he needs to be the guy. And when he has that knowledge, he's always just so much better. So, and they're good friends, so that works out too.
He was also good friends with Korpisalo, so.
Well, yeah, but Korpisalo. Yeah.
Anyway,
where's Bennett? Somebody needs to get Bennett.
I think actually Bennett probably heard this somewhere and is like doing little looks around.
Yeah, he heard Korpisalo and it's like.
So Chris was asking, we kind of touched on this a little bit already, but Chris asked, do you think the presence of Ullmark helps isolate defensive deficiencies? Now, Chris specifies the bottom pairing, but in general, I think the question regarding any defensive deficiencies, whether it's on forward or defense, Alex, do you think that the presence of Ullmark alone kind of helps isolate that?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I don't have the stat in front of me, but I think last year they're kind of middle in the pack in expected goals, right? And their goaltending just floundered, and that's why they were so poor. But, I do worry about the bottom pair, and Chris talks about Hammer. I think he's had a pretty decent training camp, all things considered, for a bottom pair defenseman. I do worry a lot if he's anywhere higher than 5 or 6, but on the depth chart. But I don't think Tyler Clevens played very well in preseason and training camp, and that's unfortunate because he didn't really have a competition at that spot on the left side. But overall, yeah, and of course it does. And I think Chabot and Jensen, which it looks like they're going to go with as the second pair, and I think that'll be interesting to see how well they defend together. But I think Sanderson and Zub will be a shutdown D, and I think Ullmark, if you have good goaltending, you win in the league. I think it's as simple as that, right? And if Ullmark is in that 915, 920 range, then I don't see this team losing too many games when he starts. When Forsberg's in the net, it might be a bit different, but overall, I think Ullmark can really push this team over the top.
I just want to go back to like the 2013 Sens, where they had Leonard and Bishop and Anderson, and all three of them were so damn good that season. I think Bishop was, in quotations, the worst of the three with like a 920 save percentage. Oh, man. I would love to relive the glory days of Sens goaltending.
And Alex, you mentioned, Cleven not having a great camp. When that massive list of waivers came out, did you get a sense from the Sens that there was a possibility that they could make a waiver claim?
Bruce Garriock reported that would be the case. I was surprised that they kept Gaudette. I thought that waiving him meant that they were going to send him down to Belleville and he's going to be on the open night roster. So I think that was interesting. I mean, it does get them underneath the cap they can accrue cap space throughout the season. I am surprised that throughout the summer and even, just even on Tuesday during the waiver claims, that Steos didn't pick up a left shot defenseman. I do think that's a really big area of need. And I think if you look at this roster and you're like, what's the big glaring hole? Is that after Tyler Clevin, there is no one in Belleville. There's no obvious replacement. And obviously, if someone gets hurt, you can probably pick someone off the waiver wire or whatever. But I think if this team is going to struggle and not make the playoffs or not come close, I think it's if Sanderson or Shabbat get injured for an extended period of time, and then it's like, you're asking Tyler Clevin to play 20 minutes a night, and I think he's just not. I don't know if he'll ever be at that place in his career, but right now he definitely is not there. So I think that's going to be the big area of concern, was just especially the lack of depth on the left side. On the right side, you have JBD. I think he's serviceable as a seventh defenseman. It would be weird if you had a Hamonic JBD bottom two righties. I've never seen that before, so maybe knowing if there's an injury or something. But overall, I think that's the biggest area of concern for the Senators.
Now, we know you have to run soon, Alex, but we have one more question, at least in the chat, that I want to pose to you. And that would be from CDM, who asks, how much of a boost does the Ullmark extension give to the Sens core? And what do you predict that Linus Ullmark's record will be this year?
How many games is he playing? I guess I'll go with 55 because that seems like a decent number of games. They've talked about playing over 50. So
at first I thought you meant wins, and I was like, oh
no.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's 55 wins. Absolutely.
This is like Patrick Waugh in the 90s or something. I don't know. 55. I'll say he'll have 30 wins. I think that's maybe I'm too bullish. Maybe
I like it.
Take that.
27. I'm gonna go a bit lower. 27.
No, I'm taking 30. You said
okay,
it.
30. I went with it. I need to be a hot take machine. So I'll go with 30, 20, and 5. That's my record. Something like that. That makes the math work. We'll see if that's the case, but that's the kind of ballpark. I think the Sens will win a lot of games with Ullmark, and I think maybe another part of if they make the playoffs is how well they do with Forsberg. How well does he play? Do they kind of hold the ship without Ullmark in net?
I feel like I'm gonna put out a prediction as well. I'm gonna say the Sens have 50 wins.
Wow!
Damn.
Yep. And couple overtime losses.
That
good for I'm gonna say 106 points altogether.
My God.
My hot take is that the Senators could repeat what Vancouver did last year, where it's a team that you didn't really know would be like a playoff team on the bubble, and then they kind of exploded. I think there is a possibility where the Sens jump up to, I don't know if they'll win the division, but being one of the top 3 in the division, if everything goes well, if Ullmark's amazing, Stutz is a 90-point guy, 100-point guy, Kachuk scores 40, their defense is intact, Sanderson takes a step. Like, I do think there's a possibility in a world where they do that. Do I think it's the likeliest outcome? No, but I do think, in the Venn diagram of kind of possibilities, there's a possibility that they jump up and have a really good season and do really well. But I do think there's also a possibility that they miss the playoffs by 8 points. Like, I think that's right. Yeah.
And I mean, last season, Forsberg had I think it was 27 games, and he won 15 of them. So, and he didn't have great numbers. So even if he improves to, let's say, 900, and he can get Ottawa some wins, I think that as long as everything goes normal, A-okay, I'm not going to say the potential word of what Ottawa has had to deal with a lot in the past year or two with certain parts of the body that get, damaged. Can I use that word?
Yes.
I'm trying to dance
partially
around
torn.
the I
Partially
word. Yeah.
torn.
Yeah, can't mention certain parts of the body there. Can't jinx it. So anyway, hopefully everybody can stay healthy, stay away from the reserve that we don't mention.
I will say on that
no
note,
betting.
Josh Norris, I think, has looked pretty good in camp. We'll see if he translates it, and obviously We won't say knock on wood, but I do think he's looked pretty good in camp, and it'll be interesting to see if that shot translates with all the issues from the past. But I have thought that he's looked really good in training camp, and if he's your number 2 center, he gets you maybe not gets 50 goals, but he gets 25, 30, maybe if he's in that 30 goal range. I think that will be a huge boost for the Senators, and it just slots everyone in the right position. Shane Pinto is a really, really good third line center, can be a second line center on a lot of teams. And
you'll be playing for more than half a season.
Exactly. So. Yeah. So doesn't have the suspension anymore, thank God. So that's What a crazy start to last year, eh? Compared to
everything was going wrong. Every possible thing that did. So let's just keep the vibes going.
Good crazy vibes. Exciting start to this year, and going full circle back to Linus Ullmark signing that big extension today ahead of the regular season debut for him against the Florida Panthers, who decimated Boston. So Ottawa will be in against some tough competition. 2024 Stanley Cup winners. Let's see what they can do.
Love to see it.
Sick. Well, thanks everyone. It was a shorter live stream today, but we know that some of us had plans, so we got a dip. But we want to thank Alex for joining us on short notice. Really appreciate it. Make sure to check out Alex's content on Sportsnet. And thanks for joining us, Alex. Really appreciate it.
Of course. Have me on anytime. And I guess it means that every time I'm on, there's good news. So I like that. I like that. So
damn, that is true.
Well, that is very true. At least this year. Maybe I'm jinxing it.
All right. Next time we bring you on, it'll be because like Ottawa's won 70 games straight or something. Okay.
Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna say like a 10-game losing streak. I'm like, just to bring back the vibes or something.
Yeah. No, that's also a good point.
Either way, we'll get it sorted.
Exactly.
All right, sweet. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and thanks again, Alex. And we'll see you guys next time. Go Sens, go.
Go Sens, go.